And then about a year ago, I went to the Human Trafficking Unit, where I'm currently one of the sergeants in the Human Trafficking Unit. I've also been a member of the Special Emergency Reaction Team, or CERT for short, which is Portland's tactical team, for a little over 7 years now.
So you have done so much in your time with Portland. Would you share with us what your experience with racism has been?
Yeah, I think that's one of the...
Within PPB, I should say.
Certainly.
Or while you've been assigned to PPB.
I think that's one of the big conversations right now, is the intersection of race and law enforcement. Internally, since I've been here, from my coworkers, I've experienced zero racism internally. The men and women of the Portland Police Bureau are some of the most accepting and kind people that I've ever interacted with, and some of my best friendships have been fostered within the Portland Police Bureau. It's interesting being an African-American officer, and I think this is a shared experience as I have conversations with other black officers. When you step outside of your agency, when you wear this uniform in public, especially if you're interacting with communities of color, it doesn't always go well. And there's a common experience that you're no longer black, you're blue. You're no longer one of us, you're part of the police bureau. And very quickly, I can remember several instances responding to calls where that has actually been called out. I'll give you an example. We had a shooting in East Portland. It was believed that one of our shooting victims and possibly the shooter were still inside, and it was starting to look like it was going to be a tactical team response. And so that's where on duty CERT personnel to respond, and I was working that day and started to respond to that call. As I got on scene, I saw where the command post was at, started to head that way, and off to the left-hand side there was a group of about maybe a dozen or so black folks that were kind of hanging out. And from that group, a comment was thrown out towards me, and it's like, hey, they sent the one token black guy. And I want to pause there for a moment to think about like what that actually means. So they didn't see, hey, here's a well-trained officer that's going to come help this dangerous situation. They didn't think that, hey, this is an officer that has dedicated his time and his energy towards bringing peace to our community. It was like, hey, the only reason he's here is to fit some artificial quota. And that was not the case. Fortunately, this wasn't the first time that I had experienced that. People often talk about the healing power of humor, and so I looked over at the crowd and I said, hey, we're hiring, and so if you want to join us, fill out an application, go to our website, and that kind of de-escalated the situation, and I got some chuckles. But that thought process is out there. I can remember another time I was working GVRT, and my partner, who was a mixed race guy, he's half black, half white, we conducted a traffic stop, and the young lady, she's African American, as we're walking up to the door, she said she stopped me because I'm black. And then when she turned and looked at me and saw that my skin tone was darker than her own, she's like, well, maybe you didn't stop me because I'm black. So there's this thing that we as a society, as a culture, really need to start kind of working through. And so those are just some experiences that I've had internally, externally as a black police officer.